Wake up, filmmakers. Respect the source. Respect the fans. Here we are, another video game adaptation, and it's not doing so well. Yes, I'm talking about the Until Dawn movie, if we can still call it Until Dawn. When I first saw the trailer, I thought it was a pretty cool idea. There were multiple threads, each with a totally different style, and they seem to represent different horror genres. You've got the psycho, which clearly fits into the slasher category, and there's some witchcraft and possession stuff that leans into supernatural horror. And of course, we got Wendigos, the zombies. It actually reminded me of Cabin in the Woods, which I thought was a fun and creative movie overall. And the Groundhog Day setting where they experienced the night again and again gave it a very good potential. Until Dawn is actually a very story-driven game, and that made me a little concerned. From what I saw in forums and discussions, a lot of fans aren't happy about how much the movie changes the original settings and doesn't seem to follow the story at all. Still, despite that, it looked like it could be fun. There's a mix of horror types and I'm personally into gore, so I figured I'd give it a shot anyway. Oh boy, am I regretting this. I'm about to get into some spoilers, so you've been warned. The beginning of the movie is fine. Just your usual horror setup. A bunch of friends head out to find Clover's missing sister, stumble into a creepy old visitor center in a place called Glow Valley. Pretty standard stuff. Then, of course, someone decides to sign the guest book, and that's when things start getting weird. They run into the psycho, people start dying, and then boom, they all wake up like nothing happened. The night resets, that whole time loop thing kicks in. They go through it a few more times, dying in different ways, until Clover finally realizes she has to confront this guy named Hill, who seems to be behind everything. And here's where the problems really start. The third act. This is when the group finally decides to fight back, but everything feels super rushed. They wake up again, but now one girl is missing and nobody remembers anything. Suddenly it's the 13th night, apparently the final night before they become part of the night, or whatever that means, but hold on, what happened to the other 8 nights? The movie just skips over them completely. We are told they face multiple threats, but we only get to see them through a few phone recordings. That's it, phone recordings. And honestly, that's such a wasted opportunity. There were so many cool looking monsters, ghosts, or whatever they were supposed to be, but instead of showing them properly, the movie just flashes them on screen for like 5 seconds, most of which we already saw in the trailer. It really feels like they got lazy or just didn't want to put in the work to build tension or give these creatures the screen time they deserved. This brings me to the biggest issue I have with the movie. There are just way too many cheap jump scares, all the way to the end. After a while, it stops being scary and just gets annoying. It feels like a lazy shortcut instead of a real horror. These moments don't add anything meaningful to the story. It's always the same trick. Something suddenly pops out with a loud bang. Sure, it might make you flinch, but there's no lasting fear, no tension. Now take Terrifier as a good example. That movie doesn't rely on jump scares to get under your skin. It makes you uncomfortable by being quiet, unpredictable, and showing you stuff that really messes with your head. Art the Clown isn't constantly leaping out at people. He's just standing there, staring, smiling, waiting, and that's way creepier. You never know when something awful is going to happen, and that's what keeps you on edge. It feels disturbing and real, not just surprising for a split second. That's what this movie is missing. It doesn't let scenes breathe or build suspense. Instead, it just keeps throwing stuff at you, hoping for a reaction. And like I said earlier, the mix of horror genres gave it a ton of potential. They could have done so much more with the monsters and the setting, but instead, it all felt wasted, and that's really disappointing. At the end of the movie, Clover kills Hill and saves Morgan. The others take down the Psycho, which by the way was a very underwhelming fight. Then they all just escape, like nothing even happened. But the movie never explains anything. Why was there a loop in the first place? why one of them had to die in order for them to survive, and how exactly are all these monsters and horrors supposed to be connected to Clover's trauma? Are they stuck in some kind of dream? Did any of that actually happen? What about them turning into monsters? What was that even about? Did the transformation just reverse after the escape? There are so many unanswered questions, and none of it really makes sense. And unfortunately, the characters aren't likable either. Even during the first couple nights, their decision making is so ridiculous, it's almost funny if it wasn't so frustrating. One bad choice after another, like they were trying to get killed. They were clearly told not to open the door, and they still opened the door. In a haunted house, when a chair starts moving by itself, their first instinct is to walk up and stop it? Then a creepy clown toy randomly shows up on that same chair, and the reaction is, yeah, let's pick it up and throw it. Just leave. And on top of that, the characters don't really have any depth or anything memorable about them. There are 5 of them, and maybe they could have used those missing nights to explore each person's trauma or backstory, give us something to actually care about. At least that way we'd get to know them a bit better and maybe have a better explanation of why they're even part of this whole mess. But right now, it feels like Clover is the only one who really matters. Everyone else is just kind of there. And all that was just me ranting about the movie itself, not even taking consideration that it is actually a video game adaptation. The movie makes some big changes from the game's original story and setting. I haven't played the original game, but here's what I found after some research. The whole time loop thing wasn't even in the game. That alone makes it confusing for a lot of people, especially when the movie doesn't bother to explain how or why it's happening. And because of that, it's really hard to connect this movie to the game story, even though you can tell they tried to link it somehow at the end. They even cast the same actor, Peter Stormare, to portray Hill or Dr. Hill in the game, but without proper context, it just doesn't work. Honestly, if this movie had a completely different title, I think people might have been a lot more forgiving. But when you call it Until Dawn, you are setting a certain expectation, especially for fans of the game. People were expecting something way more faithful, or at least something that respects the source. And I hate to say it, but this keeps happening with video game adaptations. Studios slap a familiar title on a totally different story and then act surprised when fans push back. So it raises the question, why do we keep seeing video game adaptations fail, when the way to make them better is so obvious? Look at Halo, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, Monster Hunter, Borderlands, and now Until Dawn. All they had to do was follow the game setting, design, and most importantly, the story. That's what fans love, and if done well, it can still be enjoyable for general audience too. But no, instead they changed the setting for no clear reason, ignore what made the original special, and in some cases, even brag about not knowing the source material. Yes, I'm looking at you, Halo. Seriously, stop pretending you know better. It's insulting. This attitude, like the game community, isn't worth listening to. How does it make sense to alienate the very fans who want to support your project just to chase some imaginary wider audience? Wake up, filmmakers. Respect the source. Respect the fans. Look at The Last of Us. That series is doing great. And guess what? It's basically a faithful recreation of the game's story, just told in TV format. People love it. Why? Because if it ain't broken, don't fix it. The story was the heart of the game, and all the showrunners had to do was adapt it properly for television. Sure, not everyone will be 100% happy, but at least it respects the source material and captures what made the game special in the first place. And that's what a good adaptation should do. And what if the game doesn't have much of a story to begin with? Take a Minecraft movie for example. The game itself is basically a sandbox with no set narrative, and that's totally fine. They leaned all the way into fan service, and people loved it. Maybe a little too much, but that's the whole point. It doesn't need to be a cinematic masterpiece. It just needs to know its audience and give them what they came for. You are never going to make a movie that pleases everyone, but you can make one that pleases most people, especially the fans. When I was a kid, people treated video games like poison. They described games as a waste of time, a bad influence, something that would rot your brain or make you violent. To them, games were just loud distraction with no real value. But for me, and for a lot of us, games were something more. They told story, sparked imagination, and gave us experiences we could never forget. Some of them were just as powerful as books or movies, if not more. So, deep down, I've always wished that some of my favorite games could get proper adaptations, so people outside the game world could see what makes them so special, why I love them, and why they are actually art. And I think that's a dream a lot of us gamers share. So, whatever game you're passionate about, whatever title you wish more people knew or appreciated, drop it in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear about them. And if you're enjoying the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.